Again, good morning from a very different location for me this week, as we're live from Dallas with a very special guest who, him and I go back about 15 years, and through all the different experiences we've had at the 31st of December last year, we closed the deals. So now we are part of CAG International in terms of Haig Barrett Incorporated in the US, and we are pretty much very excited to have a whole slew of things around agility at our fingertips, around corporate agility programs, and really moving things along as companies try and restructure for uncertain times. I mean, at Haig Barrett, we do have a strategic practice that really looks at strategic foresight, and we spend a lot of time planning with CEOs, a lot of them in engineering sectors, in terms of how they design the future. And so, like every Thursday, we brought Hans in as an industry expert. We bring in leaders and entrepreneurs to explore a business conversation. This week, the focus is on business agility or corporate agility. So for anyone new to the room, my name is Haig Armaghanian, and I'm a strategic advisor, a CEO, and a podcaster. So I think, again, we can probably get straight into the topic. Just to let my fellow people on stage know, I don't seem to have the plus button here to invite people in. So I don't know if that's a Clubhouse problem or just my problem, but yeah. Yeah, I'm sure Abigail, but she may not have all my contacts. But is anyone else experiencing that on stage, that you have no plus button?
No, I think it's just you, Haig. I can see people, so I'm pinging people in as we go.
Okay, and can you hear us okay?
Yep, you're absolutely perfect. Let's get this party started.
Okay, well, I think, first of all, I'm going to ask you a question really around leadership, and I want to just jump in terms of what are the skill sets of an agile leader, or what are the skill sets needed today by today's leaders. We've seen everything from, like you said, COVID, and multiple black swans. Oil was, or gas was, at negative last year. Was it last year this time it went negative? We've seen all sorts of very strange things. We've got the COVID, we've got the crash. I know after the 2008 crash, we started building a program at Haig Barrett that was around leading in uncertain times. But if I was looking through the curriculum we put together for some leadership people there, and the amount of change now is 10 times worse. So again, what are the skill sets? And then after that, as more people have joined, I'll ask you to share a little more about your background and how you came to do what you do. But let's jump in straight with a leadership question.
Okay. Well, first of all, it is truly a paradigm shift that we have in front of us when it comes to leadership skills and leadership activities. Because if you think about it, the last 100 years almost, or 200 years since industrialization, basically, we have learned and been taught all through to actually measure as much as possible. And we have got into a situation today, especially enabled by technology, where we're pretty good at it, okay? And we have, through measurement in general, we have achieved fantastic productivity improvements on the manufacturing floor, on the logistics, etc. However, the problem with the future world that will require a paradigm shift is that we have recognized that when you're in a hurry, okay, you have to, and you automate a lot of the stuff around you, which is by definition dependent on measurement, then you recognize that you can't measure everything. And that is a huge, huge problem for the future, because we have locked ourselves into dependencies of processes and plans and IT and all kinds of stuff. And the future leader, he must be able, or she must be able, to actually put processes under people rather than have processes leading people. because you have to make a leap of faith at the end, especially when you're in a hurry. And with life cycles of products and uncertainty getting higher, you have to react extremely fast. The metaphor we're using all the time for that reason is actually think like the skipper on a ship. You have a very, very big system with thousands of people, but the captain on board and on the bridge, on a nanosecond, they have to decide to turn or stop or take another route or do whatever is needed. And the whole system around a big ship is geared towards agility, if you think about it. And there is no reason why companies can't be as agile as a big cruise liner with 8,000 people on board. Okay, that is a paradigm shift. It will be a major, major change in leadership, and the challenge is you put people over processes. You have to respond to change over the plans that are existing. You have to put the soft factors over the hard factors. You have to have collaboration arrangements with your sub-suppliers rather than rigid contracts. You have to have a bridge, in fact, that is looking forward rather than only backwards, which is the most of the cases in all companies. And you have to choose wisely in terms of leadership talent, where you get leaders that actually can think by themselves and use the right side of the brain as much as the left side of the brain, which is much more linear in everything. So it's a paradigm shift, period.
So in this paradigm shift, I know we've talked beforehand that the analogy of a big ship turning at speed. I mean, in some way, then are we saying some of what we think is the ability to predict and to plan scenarios? Are we kind of saying, in a way, that's not as important if you've got a very agile, ship that you can turn quickly? Because we're saying we don't really know what's coming with all the black swans and stuff. But we're saying it's not enough to try and predict, or can you predict?
Well, think of it this way. The exercise of budgets or forecasts is an extremely important exercise, and it helps you in general on the directional where you're going. One of the problems, though, is even in forecasts. Okay, I remember so well that one of my good friends, Hans Levenbach, professor, and has written actually the textbook of forecasting. He expresses it this way, and that is the problem is that there is, number one, he says there is not enough quantitative muscle, which has to do with measurement, of course, but the other one is that the failure, after I have been talking to him for 10 years, okay, is that he has recognized that one of the problems with enterprising compared to other areas is that we are requiring, and we put a plan together with a number. If you think about it, a number. This is will be the quarterly returns that we expect. This will be the developments that we will do. This will be expenditures that we will do, etc. And it's always a number. And one of the problems is that it's never a number in an agile. It's at least a range. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And the weatherman, who has the greatest quantitative muscle in the world with all the supercomputers, they don't know whether that hurricane is going south of Florida or north of Florida only 5 days out. And we think we can do a whole year's budget with more variables than they have actually in the weather scenario. And it's just an impossibility. So the only possible answer to that is a range will help you a lot instead of a number, and be extremely agile in terms of responding to whatever changes happens within that range.
No, that's brilliant. And I think a couple of things we've started on some strategy assignments is we're giving clients five futures, so not one future, not three, and the center line is the main expected future, and then they have another two that are worse and another two that are better, and they understand how they can pivot have to apologize. Very noisy here. They promised me this was a very quiet side room at the Westin here in Stonebriar, Dallas. But anyway, I will hand off to Abigail because I think Kev is in Vegas. So Abigail, you are going to have to maybe just set up the room. And after you do that, I want to come back to Hans, just get a bit of his background. And then I want to open up to the rest of the panel here to ask him some questions too. I've got a whole load, but so Hans, when we come back, we're going to just ask you for that. And Abigail, over to you.
Amazing. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. You are. Let me just mute you, Haig. You are in Haig's Business Winners Club. And every week, Haig invites an expert to talk about a subject that is current within the industry, within the world. So today, the conversation is all around agility and navigating these uncertain times. So the guest in the club today is called Hans Amell. He is the foremost thought leader when it comes to corporate agility, and he is the author of 2 books, Mastering Business Agility and Radical Business Agility, which is due to be released later this month. So corporate agility has become essential for today's organizations, and this is the conversation that we are having here with Hans. Haig has some questions, but we would love to hear from you. So in order for us to hear from you, what you need to do is see this greenhouse that is at the top of the screen. Click this greenhouse and become a member of the club, and then that means you have the ability to raise your hand and be brought up to ask any questions if there is time. So Haig has worked with Hans for over 10 years, and as Haig said at the start of the room, he is the founder, CEO and owner of Haig Barrett Partners, and Hans Amell is the same for CAG International, and Haig Barrett Inc. joined forces with CAG International late last year, and this is accelerating the rollout of new world-class programs in the US. So any questions that you've got, join the club, raise your hand. We would absolutely love to hear from you because, as I said, Hans is the expert when it comes to agility and transformation strategies in these crazy, uncertain times. So, Haig, the mic is back to you.
Yeah, and I haven't really introduced the panel either. And you mentioned Radical Business Agility, the book that's probably coming out anytime this week here in the US. That's the second book. Kurt is also here. So on my right, I don't know how these faces come out, but on the top right is Kurt. So welcome, Kurt, also to the show. You're sitting there modestly, but I know you're a co-author of the book. So do you want to say a couple of words?
Yeah. First of all, it's great to be back again. And as you mentioned, I had a little bit of a part to play in the book. And it's sort of interesting because Hans comes from a top-down perspective. He's been working with large companies, as you know, for quite a while. I sort of come from the opposite direction, from the, say, factory floor up. And I've been working with communication and getting teams to talk with each other. Well, actually, probably better said, listening to each other. And working with sales, customer service, presentation technique, those kind of things. So regarding the book, which I'm really, really excited to see here in a hardcover fashion, it's a very, very interesting, comprehensive look at agility. Not only from the management perspective, but also just getting people to understand stuff in creating these aha experiences so people can go further. I usually say my product is somebody's aha experience. So yeah, that'll do it for now. But I'm also sitting on the board with Hans on CAG International. So, and we really welcome you, Haig, and your entire team to the family.
Great.
That's it.
Before I go on to Melissa, thank you, Kurt, for that. And before I go on to Melissa, Hans has a quick comment on something you said.
Well, yeah, Kurt, it's always good to He's my compadre and as we have collaborated in this book now for many, many years. The interesting thing, as a comment to what Kurt just said, yes, we're coming from different angles on this thing. But when we wrote our first book, Mastering Agility, that's many years ago now, and we were totally pioneering the whole concept of corporate agility in that first book. At the time, there was no proof that we were right because we were really working on hypothesis that we have to get more agile or we will die as corporations if they don't get their act together and get a little bit quicker on their feet. Uh, this second book, which is called Radical Business Agility, here we now, 7 years later, for the first time, we are able to present proof that actually by being more agile and doing agility initiatives in the company will benefit. It's only a few months ago, less than a year ago, that McKinsey, May 21 actually to be exact, McKinsey made a major gallop around the world and interviewed like 2,000 or over 2,000 respondents on agility initiatives and found out with real proof that about the doing agility initiatives, the customer satisfaction increased with 30%, the operational processes improved with 30%, the decision-making speed improved with 10%, and the ones who have those, they always were on the forefront of innovation among their peers, and the employee engagement increased vastly, and the gains in efficiency also. So now the second book, different from the first book, has the proof that if you get the sad part or the good part in a sense for us, of course, we're dealing with this, but it's only about 10% of the 2,000 companies. So it's only 200 companies that during the last year have started initiatives. That means that 90% of the large global companies have done nothing in terms of getting more agile. And that's the opportunity. And the title of my normal speech, that is like an hour for management, that title is Get Agile or Die. And that is more true than ever.
No, that's right. And I think if I was more agile, Hans, I'd have a quieter place for us to do this interview. But I'm in the lobby of Dallas for anyone who's just joined us. And I'm trying to get through introducing the people on stage. But Hans is like a racehorse and just wants to share so much. So we thank you for coming on today to Haig's Business Winners. I've got Melissa as well on stage. So we're going to hear from her soon. She's the CEO and founder of the Modern Mind Group. And she talks a lot about emotioneering, and her new book is out, and she was here last week talking about that, which we loved. Got Sharina here, who's a social media genius, and she's very active in all parts of social media, but especially LinkedIn and more of the business platforms that we're interested in. Also a lot of Instagram. And Matthew is a hospitality consultant and business coach. I think I've seen Matthew once before. Well, I've seen him many times, Matthew, but once before when I saw you, I wanted to introduce you to another person who I want you to meet in London, who's in a very similar business. And I think there might be some overlaps. And then I think we have Shay in Nigeria. So hello to you as well, Shay. And Shay is the CEO of Oculus, which is a partner company for Haig Barrett, and we do a lot of work together. His special focus is oil and gas utilities, which is one of the sectors we've done a lot of work in as well. And he's also based in Marylebone with us. So anyway, so back to what's next. Wanted to give Hans a few minutes, get your background in a very concise way. I'll throw out some of the bits that I remember that are exciting, which is, again, Swedish background, brought up in Latin America, fluent in many languages, including Spanish, I guess, Swedish, and and whatever else. Maybe take us from, how do you get from um, being in Sweden and, I don't know, swimming naked in the fjords or whatever you guys do up there, to suddenly becoming a business agility or corporate agility expert. And you've also, I know your background in McKinsey, investment banker, all sorts of other things, but just give us 2 minutes.
When he says be concise, means that don't talk so much. I appreciate that.
Well, I know they've all
I
got
get
questions.
enthusiastic, so
Yeah.
that's how it is. No, I'm a product of Swedish export industry. My father worked for one of the big global companies called SKF, and we moved around since I was very young.
I'm not sure if it's me, Haig, but we've lost
Okay.
Hans.
No, sorry, that was my fault. I thought he wasn't with me, but yeah,
Well,
go ahead.
he's really strict about this thing being
No,
concise.
yeah, you're out of time, Hans.
Okay.
So
Well,
start again. 6 months old, export of Sweden.
Yeah. I'm a product of Swedish export industry. That's how I grew up in different countries. Anyway, that said, I think I will start with after schools, after education, and the officer in the Navy. I actually was with McKinsey for many years, and I enjoyed every second of it. The proverb in the book, by the way, is Bob Waterman, who was a director at McKinsey and wrote In Search of Excellence. But McKinsey, at a very young age, gives you an enormous insight onto problems in companies, because that's what it is. And since then, I've been a transformation person all through my life. And almost every single assignment, every single job I've ever seen actually connected with the fact that they were not quick enough. They were not quick enough in acting, okay? And that prompted me to write a book about it. And I used some of the tools I learned in McKinsey for sure, but half of the suggestions we're making in our book are invented by myself and the groups I've been working with. But agility is right in the center. We can't plan so much, and we must act. And the companies are very bad in responding quickly to a new event of some sort. They are really very quick. And the big stoppers, the inhibitors, are the same for every company. And this will be my last comment. The inhibitors are always processes, IT, organization, and culture in the company. That's the top 4 inhibitors, and that's what we've been focusing on my whole life, and that's what the book is about.
Yeah, and the book is still not out, right? It's going to be out any second now.
It can be pre-ordered already in the big stores, and the shipment have started to the inventories of the different book stores like Barnes and Noble and all those. And I think it's on the shelves next week, is what I heard from my publisher. And the good news with the book, it's not only saying this is important and these are the problems. Actually, the whole last section of the book is don't despair. It's a lot of things you can do about it. So it is Brilliant. truly a very advanced leadership book on giving guidance on all of these things you can do, and it will have an impact. And actually, that's some of the products that we're launching, is that you can achieve agility improvement in only 3 months through some of our products that we have there. So it's very exciting for sure.
Yeah, and he mentioned the 3 months. That's one of the 2 most popular ways, I think, for companies to work with Haig Barrett and CAG is basically we've got a 90-day program where, saves you all reading the book, but we go in and we basically take them through a process that delivers amazing results in 90 days. And I'm actually in Dallas now, just to reset the room a little bit here. We're at the halfway mark. I've got my special guest today, Hans Amell, and we're talking about actually radical business agility, which is the name of his book. And I'm now going to hand off to the people on stage. But if you like to check me out, then look at my Instagram or certainly join me on LinkedIn, and you'll see that I've got I just completed my second series of podcasts, the second series, and I've had some amazing CEOs, literally of $80 billion companies, talking about their mindset, their leadership mindset, and how they got to where they got to. And what you're going to hear are all the themes that are in agility and corporate agility are really the success factors. As Hans said, I think 200 out of 2,000 companies right now from the most recent McKinsey study showed that only 10% are really implementing this kind of agile leadership mindset. And anyway, enough said. I want to go to, I think, Abigail first, and I think Abigail's question will make Melissa want to comment. So I'm going to go to Abigail, and then you can hand off to Melissa as we talk a little about the people side of agility, and then I'll go to Matthew and Shay, and anyone else who wants to pose a question or make a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I am really, really excited to hear Hans's thoughts on this question. There's just so much going on in the world of work. And we heard from the amazing Melissa Curran last week, who's also just launched her own book, Emotioneering. And so my question for you, Hans, is really around the skill set of an agile leader in this day and age. I was reading an article the other day on the BBC website that talked about how employees, or talent as I like to call them, are assessing organizations based on their values, and they are leaving organizations that don't align with their values. So my question is really around, how can an agile leader navigate this world that we are finding ourselves in right now, with the great resignation, with retention, with recruitment and corporate agility? Last week, Melissa told us that it takes around £15,000 to bring on board new talent. So this is quite a big financial challenge for organizations, not to mention that getting good talent is also a problem. So to sort of reframe that question, then, it's your thoughts on agile leadership. What are the key strengths that are needed for these leaders in the world in which we find ourselves in right now? The mic is back to you.
Okay, thank you so much. It's a very, very good question because it's a lot in the mind, in fact. Now, I'm getting
No, I said don't
orders
drop your
here.
phone for the camera.
Okay, very good. Well, you asked the question on the new leaders of the world and how they should look like and what the skill set is. It's a very big problem. In the book, we make the argument that a new leader in this society of major change and great uncertainty has to use both sides of his brain. That is one comment we make. But before I go into that, let me talk about the restrictions a little bit that we have had imposed on us. And that has to do, as I said before, processes, systems, organization, and culture. Now, in that regard, we have been restricted on measurement. And now let me go deeper into that. All measurements that have been done historically now for the last 200 years almost is all based on the bell curve. The bell curve, people look at the average talent and the skill set of people, and they see, okay, here we have the majority, the average in the company, right. And then they put up processes with the intention to move that average. So and when you go into absurdum almost in getting too process oriented, what happens is that you just reinforce the average company. But I don't believe, and McKinsey and other companies don't believe, that the average is good. The average is not the company. The company value is to a large extent, just to say a number, 80-20. That 20% of the people, they actually are the ones who drive the company forward. And I'm not putting value in this thing. The 80% are good people, wonderful people, but they have other objectives. 20% of the people, they want to push the envelope. They want to think out of the box. They want to drive forward. They want to improve stuff all the time. And they hate the whole concept of processes and being shackled and handcuffed to processes where you can hardly have a meeting without following a process. So overly process-oriented companies, they lose the top talents because they want to have space. They want to be able to challenge the norms. They want to be able to push it forward. And the ones who are in the bottom line of that bell curve, they will lose anyway because they are obviously not interested in the company and they probably lose their jobs. But the really good ones, they will leave because they don't want to be in that environment. And that's what you're seeing right now, a lot of. That is horrendous. We have to take away those shackles. And one of the reasons and one of the premises of the book too is that we have to therefore rethink how an organization should be driven. Today we have it either geographically or we have it functionally driven. My future organization, yes, we need processes. Yes, we need all of these things. And in some areas, it's more adequate than others. But in general, the company should be run through like projects. And the functions should be there, but they should be there to support the projects rather than the other way around. So I must see a much more project-driven organization. Here is a paradox a little bit because we often think about military as a heavy elephant, so to say, and they might be in the back office for sure. But the interesting thing is that the militaries of the world, they are actually more agile than most enterprises. Because, why? Well, because they have an embedded culture of mission. So when you are on a mission, you can basically break all the processes because you have to be there XYZ in terms of day or place or whatever it might be. And that is embedded in the culture of militaries. And it's embedded in the culture of a lot of entrepreneurially driven smaller companies very often. Very few and far in between of the large companies have this project orientation, which is a huge, say, change from the past, right, where you're locked in. I don't know if that answered a little bit of your question, but I can talk about hours about this.
No, that's great, Hans. Abigail?
No, thank you. I know it did, and I'm sure that Kurt and Melissa have got thoughts to add on it as well.
Yeah,
Great.
just real quick, if I can. One of my very good friend of mine came up with a wonderful expression. He says, "Policy replaces life," and that's exactly what we're starting to see in the business world, especially as things get more digitized. Because it's turning out to be ones and zeros. And having worked for digital equipment many years ago, we actually talked about people in the organization. Either they were a one or they were a zero. So it's getting worse and worse. That's it.
Okay, Kurt, I'll ask you to rate me later at the end of this as a 1 or a 0. We'll take it from there. Over to you, Melissa, and welcome to Haig's Business Winners. And I know this is a topic close to your heart.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been some brilliant insights shared today, and I'm loving what Kurt and Hans are basically sharing. What I want to touch on there a little bit about employee engagement is that the bell curve of performance, when you have the right level of employee engagement, can be absolutely smashed to pieces. There doesn't have to be such a curve, and I've seen that happen. It only happens when you're able to look at the profit contribution of individuals and how connected they are to their work in terms of the engagement survey and how they feel and how they respond, but also it can be seen in the performance. From studying performance over many years and many teams and many organizations, that top 20% that Hans is talking about, they are the majority of the time the engaged employees. So yes, he's right to focus on the average being good, that's not where you want to be. You want to look at that top 20 to 25% and say to yourself, what is the magic combination of those individuals and what we're doing with those people that can either help to bring the others onto the bus, or maybe they're not the right fit for the organization. And in times of change, and as you start to look at the different ways that you lead, there is going to be some loss, right? But you're not going to get to the point where in terms of resignation, you would generally want to be under 10%, because an average resignation rate and kind of turnover rate for a business is around the 10% mark. The challenge that companies have at the moment is that they're seeing that actually increase up towards kind of 30%. And in some cases 40%, which is, not what you want. But at the same time, if it's aligned with that person's values, they've reevaluated and they want to move forward, then of course you have to kind of promote that they go. But look at the people, look at the top 25% of employees that are engaged, and look at the framework and what you do to keep those, and then look at bringing those types of people into the organization. I always say this phrase: it is better off having a space than the wrong person in the place. So recruiting too fast to not have the right people on board, or to keep the wrong people when you know that it's not necessarily right for them, and it's not working for you, it's not working for them, and it's just making things worse, then that's not going to help your bell curve of performance either. But in the right circumstances, with the right mix and the right leadership, like Hans is and Kurt are promoting here, and we're all promoting, you can have much better performance, which will smash the bell curve to pieces. But I also want to bring this analogy in just before I hand back about, you were talking about it, turning a large tanker. I like to think about it as lighthouse leadership. In times of uncertainty, a leader has the vision, has the light that looks across, imagine them as a lighthouse looking across the sea. And you want to, ward your team and your employees off of the rocks that are underneath you and the things that they can't see, because you have the vision and you know that they're there. But ultimately, it's about steadying the waters for them and helping them understand a sense of control, so that they know that their destiny is within their control as well. It isn't, and that they can support with the business future. It isn't just down to the leader, but the leader really helps to steady those waters for them. Back to you, Haig, and thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Melissa. Hans, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right, for sure. The challenges are enormous, and I'm so happy you agree with me on the 80-20 issue, which is huge. But I actually think that this issue will increase, because enabled by new technologies and stuff like that, you also know that the reskilling of the workforce is a major ticket item, and they think that within the next 5 years, almost 40% of the whole workforce in the whole world has to be reskilled in one way or another. Wow. It's a huge, huge endeavor. And with that reskilling comes also automatically uncertainty, okay? Because it's a new endeavor, it's a new area that you have to learn about. And the second you're dealing with that uncertainty, then you have to make, and here comes one of the problems, leap of faith. We try to automate, and I see here among our audience that we have William here. Hadala is a brilliant mind when it comes to technology, not the least. And we've been talking about one of the potential risks with higher automation. We all know about what's happening with artificial intelligence. But if you think about it, it's a huge risk there embedded in artificial intelligence, because it's all based on algorithms. And what is algorithm other than measurement? Okay, yep. And if you have a false input somewhere, you can actually automate an action or a change that is ultimately very bad for you, and it's hard to change it quickly because it's automated. And that is a big issue in the future. Think of it this way: at the end, we're people, and at the end, somebody must push a button. And when I often talk about this thing with soft factors via hard factors. Hard factors you can measure. Soft factors you cannot. We are actually coming out. Haig doesn't know that, but we're coming out with products that will be dealing with this. Okay, soft factor. One of the most important buying factors for anybody, whatever you're buying or the decision you want to take, is trust. Can I trust you? Measure that for me. It's virtually impossible. And there is a lot of these things that are actually key for any decision making in any direction, and they are soft factors. They are very hard to measure. And we must apply soft factors into this new leadership. And now you're talking about what you just said, is that a leader goes beyond just the decision making and the facts. It goes beyond that, and it's a lot of psychology. Okay, can you trust me in my vision? I can't measure everything, I don't know everything, but I'm telling you that, okay, we have these supporting facts, but we have all these uncertainties and unknowns, yet we have to take a decision. Are we going right or are we going left? Or whatever we might be doing. That's a very, very tough thing, because half of that is actually soft factors.
Yeah. And it's how you present data, how you handle data,
Exactly.
how you have your decision-making process in your
And
organization.
it's a fascinating world we are looking to in the future, because it's going so fast. It's fantastic.
I was going to go to Matthew next, but I can see he's on the phone. Shay, I don't know. Are you able to make a comment? And anyone else who's obviously got a question, put your hand up and come on up. Yeah. Shay, over to you.
Yeah, hi, Hans. I'm hoping I'm clear. I don't know if you can hear me loud and clear.
Who's this?
This is Shay in Nigeria right now.
Oh, hi, Shay.
He's
Hi,
usually in
Hans.
our
How are
London
you? I'm
office.
all the way in Nigeria. I apologies. I had an issue with my other with my original Clubhouse app, so I had to quickly set this up to join. For some reason, it's not letting me connect with the UK number, which is pretty strange on certain stuff, you know. So basically, I have a very basic question, and I'd love to hear what startups, you know. When we say uncertainty, how do we know if a business is uncertain about what it's trying to do? What are those trigger points, and how can we recognize that as a business we need to consider doing things from an what would you say are those little triggers that we should all be aware of? And if we happen to have one or two of those problems within our businesses or whatever it is we're trying to do, we should consider looking towards agility as a solution.
Yeah, well, risk management it's a huge ticket item. Okay, and I remember when we started this conversation now this morning, I said that things are happening around us. Okay, we have the Ukraine crisis, we have the COVID situation, and my first comment was, I don't think there is a single CEO in the whole world among the top global companies who is not wondering, what impact will this have on my company? What impact will this have on my staff? What impact will this have on my sales and my cash flow and whatever it might be? Okay. And that is, by definition, when you put a what in front of the sentence, it's uncertainty. Okay. So we live with this constantly. And that's the beautiful thing with the skipper on a ship, is that the skipper on a ship, he's been living with uncertainty all through, and his whole system, when it comes to crew, when it comes to giving orders, when it comes to his ability to change direction or do something differently, is all based on agility. While companies are handcuffed to a large extent into their processes, their budget, and all these things. And we can talk about hours on the budget process by itself. Is ridiculous. You know, here we put a year's budget, and then we put all the bonuses, and everything is based on events, capital expenditures, marketing efforts, new development. Everything is based on a budget that is wrong from the first day. So we have to make everything more flexible so that the company can shift easier. And of course, like I said before, the big inhibitors of change are always the same: processes, systems, organization, and culture. And that is what we now, with Haig Barrett as a company, will be hopefully helpful in the world to get the companies quicker on their feet in general. And that is all based. Why is this important? It's because of your question: uncertainty. Uncertainty is so extremely high everywhere today. And at the same time, we have all these new technologies enabling us. So if we are not quick on our feet, we will lose. We can lose our company actually very quickly if we're not responsive enough to the changes around us.
No, that's excellent. And I think I'm about to go to Matthew, but just before I go to Matthew, um, one of the guests I had was William Malek, who is a strategic foresight kind of guru and leader. And again, one of the things he said is the ability to look from outside in. And I think where I've seen Hans and a lot of my team, myself, add value to our clients is when we can have a very different perspective of what the uncertain future looks like. Because even you mentioned a lot of the CEOs don't know everything about what's going on around them. They can't know. You can also have very different perspectives. And I think bringing the outside people in helps you really get shaken up. And I've been told that many times that, even though they love working with me, I always push them on the edge. I push them out of their comfort zone. And again, I'm going to see things very differently than they are because they are stuck in the organization.
We are actually here, Hans, again. We're actually going to launch, and William, who is here in the call, we yesterday decided to launch two new products. And one is Agility Index, so that companies individually or as a segment can see how agile they are, okay,
Yeah.
in fact. And that is a program that we're just now starting. And the other one is a tool for sales in general on accounting for the the soft factors as well, which is very powerful. So we're coming out with services and products that will certainly have a major impact on helping companies understand where their bottlenecks are, where the improvements can be done. And then we have also this the 90-day approach,
Yes.
where we guarantee actually improvement directly through a special system that we have. So again,
Yeah.
don't despair. Things can be done.
We never despair. Matthew, are you able to talk now? I came to you, but you're on the phone. So welcome to Haig's Business Winners.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. Apologies for the in and out. It's like at the most inopportune moments, then people want you, or there's questions, or there's so apologies for that. I'm loving the conversation. So I do have a question around agility. Now, my background is in IT systems development and consultancy services, and yes, I run my own businesses as well. But now I've noticed an overlap or a synergy between the model or the theory or the concept of agile in IT development and have started to apply it to the business context. So somebody who's very learned in agile, I'd love to hear your thoughts around just agile as a concept, as a theory, and how you can cross-pollinate or apply it to the business context and the entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, go ahead.
Please.
Hans.
Okay. Yeah. Hi. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Yes. I said that the inhibitors are systems, processes, organization, and culture. It's an interesting thing on the IT side or the system side. By itself, it is an inhibitor not because of the intention to automate or to run a process to do things faster, But once you have it established as a process, it is by definition an inhibitor of change, because to change that, once you have it installed, it's like pulling teeth. It's so hard to make a change in IT and systems once it's established. So if you think about it for a second and say that we have a new budget, we put that budget into all our systems and process, because this is our new system, and then suddenly something happens, okay? A new embargo happens or whatever happens, and the whole logistical system must change of some sort, or there are delays. Look at the supply chain today. It's absolutely incredible, okay? So everything gets upside down. And to put in the new insights we have, that is the problem with IT. It's not IT itself, it's not systems itself, it is making changes into the system. That is what is so extremely inhibiting, okay? Because of the integration. And you know about integration 100%, because you put it into the system, and then one thing triggers another, a third, a fourth, and fifth, and the whole system around, say, Oracle, SAP, whatever financial system you have around, is all interconnected in one way or another. And you have a major change of affairs in the real world rather than our little bubble. In the real world, things have changed totally. And now we have to implement that change into our systems. That change is the problem. That is an enormous inhibitor, and it is extraordinarily hard. And that's why one of my comments is we have to learn to put people above the systems, people above. You must be able to shortcut this. Think about also customer service. You call in to a company or to anybody, and you get into a process orientation, an automatic answering service that goes through a process. Who are you? Where are you? What are you interested in, etc. And you sit 20 minutes answering to not to a robot. You start answering, and at the end, that might has nothing to do with your question that you want to have answered. Then you get to a real person eventually after 20 minutes, and you're already aggravated and angry, and then you get to a real person, and that person repeats a lot of the questions that were asked, plus then follows a process themselves. Now you have an example of a real world situation where the systems are totally destroying the customer service,
Right.
and your ability. And to change anything in that system, you can quadruple that issue when it's not even a person involved, because it's in the systems, it's in the IT, it's already integrated. That is the problem with when you look at it from a non-holistic standpoint, and you look only at agility in IT. That is my issue. I love IT. I love everything that has to do with automation, but we have to learn to put actually people above the systems if we want to put the customer first, because the real world is what counts, not what you have on the side.
Matthew, does that help?
Yeah, I mean, the way I understand Agile to be, it's like, a mindset and it's a belief system. And it's also the integration of people, processes, and systems and how that's then rolled out in the IT context. But I guess when we talk about Agile in the purest sense, it is really, the mindset, and it's the approach, and it's the test and learn, and being able to just to change and adapt to changes in circumstance. And the reason I kind of asked that question is, when we think of business, the landscape and the trajectory will always change depending on the amount and types of information that are available to us at any one point. So, yeah, I do
Absolutely. You're
agree.
so right. And yeah, you're so right. And it is another good example, by the way, that people remember is the year 2000 bug. Okay?
Yeah.
That took billions of dollars to make a simple change in IT, conceptually simple, but it took billions of dollars in consulting fees and system for changing one thing, because it was integrated in everything else. There was actually 1 0 too little. Okay, but you're so right that this is totally a mindset. It's when you're dealing with the real world, you always have to make somewhere a leap of faith. And that, with the leap of faith concept, you do understand that you are not able to have measured it, because that's why you make a leap of faith, because you don't know. And
Yep.
every decision.
Right. Thank you, Hans. I want to move over to James before, where we are running out of time, but we'll go over. I want to hear from James. Is that a comment or a question you have for us, James? Welcome to Haig's Business Winners.
Oh, thank you very much indeed. I've really enjoyed the conversations. I'm afraid I joined only about 10 or 15 minutes ago, so I wasn't here at the very start. But I just wanted to add an observation, really, and a bit of personal experience. So I used to be in the Royal Navy and the Royal Australian Navy. I was a ship's captain, and so I very much sort of I was very much resonating with what was said a couple of minutes ago around being in a command of a ship and having to be incredibly agile, because your operating environment is continuously changing. And so although you have procedures and processes to follow to operate a ship safely at sea, when you're doing so in a operational environment, whether you're on exercise or not, you've got to be incredibly agile. I'm now outside the Navy, and I'm actually heading up an agile transformation in a utility in the United Kingdom. So I'm flying a lot of that sort of mindset and perspective on Agile, but I come at it from a non-IS background. So working very closely with my IT colleagues, but trying to sort of bridge the gap between IT delivery and business outcomes. So I just wanted to add my voice to this really interesting conversation around agility, and I hope that was useful.
Wonderful to have a fellow captain here. Okay, I'm an officer in the Swedish Navy as well. So
Oh, brilliant.
I love the metaphor. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you for joining. Abigail, do you want to do a quick reset? And then I don't know if anyone's got some final comments, we'll come to them, Abigail. But it's always lovely to hear your voice. And obviously we're missing our lovely Kev, who's usually managing the room. But he's in Las Vegas, hopefully not waking up to like the Hangover movie with a tiger in his room. But Abigail, you want to just reset the room, and then I'll do the final goodbyes, unless someone's got any closing comments.
So you have been in Haig's Business Winners Club today. We've been talking all about corporate agility, navigating uncertain times, with the two-time author Hans Amell. If you are not a member of the club, then be sure to hit the green house at the top so that you get notified when Haig runs future rooms. This room is always scheduled for Thursdays at 1 to 2 p.m. GMT. And if you can see at the top of the room, we have added a link to Hans on LinkedIn, so you can connect with him over there and continue conversations, find out more about his book, which, as you've heard, is out this week. And if you have any questions or would like to talk about anything else, any of the future weeks coming up, then you can connect with myself or with Haig, and just drop us a message on one of the social platforms and let us know, because we love to talk about all things topical in Haig's Business Winners Club. And don't forget to check out Haig's podcast as well. He has got 2 series that he has recorded with world-changing organisational leaders. So thank you so much for joining us today. This room is on the replay. You will be able to listen back, and I am going to hand the mic back to you, Haig.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you, Abigail. Obviously, I'm going to give a big thank you to Hans for joining us, Kurt, who's also a participating author in the book that's about to come out, and my other mods, Melissa, Sharina, Matthew, and James, for your input, and Shay also stay safe in Nigeria. Thanks to all of you in the audience as well. It's been an absolutely amazing hour, to be honest. I mean, the amount of information we get through in this hour, and it's not all lost. We, as Abigail said, you can replay it on Clubhouse. We put a lot of the clips on my LinkedIn account. If you're not following me on LinkedIn, follow Haig Armaghanian on LinkedIn. There's a lot of information there. There's some content also goes into Instagram, but less detail. We'd love to keep this conversation going. If you have any ideas on how we can work together or where we can work together, I'd love for you to drop me a note either on here or it can be on another platform or social media. So thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful week. Unless anyone's got any burning comments, I'm going to close the room. And I'll see you all next week, 1 p.m. GMT. Again, today was from Dallas, so you got the worst of me after a flight, getting in late last night and waking up in Dallas. But next week, we'll be back in the studio live in Marylebone, London, with a very special guest. And so watch this space to see who's coming on next week. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Hans.
Thank you so much. I was a delight to talk to you.
Thank you very
Thanks a
much.
lot.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye-bye.